The voting class of 2020 is a special presentation of Fox 8.
This is the story of 12 students
who lived in Northeast Ohio,
picked to comment
about important issues
and our future,
to have their comments recorded,
and find out what happens
when young people stop worrying about homework and start getting real.
We are the voting class of 2020.
It began as a social experiment 3 years ago. In that time, Fox 8 has followed the lives, thoughts, and opinions of what would become the voting class of 2020. Thank you for joining us for a special production from Fox 8. I'm Todd Meany. There's been so much that has happened in America and around the world since the fall of 2017. For the next 30 minutes, we'll get reacquainted and catch up with a group of 12 students whom we introduced to you 3 years ago when they were just sophomores in high school. Now they've graduated and they're old enough to vote. Have their views on politics and social issues changed? Before we take a look back at what they had to say in 2017, here's what some are saying right now as they vote in this year's presidential election.
They've been preparing for 3 years. Their chance to vote for president has finally arrived.
I'm actually gonna vote and it's gonna matter this time.
To be honest, it was really nerve-wracking.
I was kind of disappointed.
I sealed it. I was like, all right, I'm an American citizen.
Along the way, they debated and discussed.
there was no back talk or eye rolling or anything.
At school, we don't talk as much about politics and the actual issues, more as the history of it.
A mix of Republicans, Democrats, and undecided voters.
I really did not know that there was kids out here that was really messing with Trump like that. I was really shocked, this is really how kids think.
It's just crazy to think how media can take over some of these kids' perspectives nowadays.
And it all comes down to this moment.
Finally, we get to see it all come to an end and see the voting process turn out.
We began this project in November of 2017 with 12 area students, all of them not only trying to navigate high school, but also trying to figure out where they fit into today's world. And at the time, we asked them about issues that were top stories in the news: gun control, NFL protests, and North Korea, issues that are still being talked about now. Here's what the voting class of 2020 thought when we first met them.
In 3 years, sophomores from around Northeast Ohio will be eligible to vote in the next presidential election. And young people are excited about having their voices heard.
I think I really want to vote because both my parents vote.
That's kind of scary, for real.
not everyone talks about voting, and it's one of those things yeah, I'll vote, but I really plan on doing the research behind it.
Because a lot of people they're not voting and then they're complaining about everything when they're not a part of the issue.
Some people my age really don't think about it, but I think it's really important to have a say in what's going to be the future.
When I get to vote, it will definitely be a fun and enjoyable experience. I want to voice my own thoughts.
I am excited because I like to voice my opinion and show what I like to believe in.
I was given the right, so I should use it.
So if they are this excited about voting, why not find out what they have to say about other important topics too? Over the next 3 years, Fox 8 will follow these 12 teenagers, let them speak about national issues, and see how they mature as American citizens. Their opinions will surprise you.
I think that the current administration, I think it could be better. I thought we'd be in Armageddon by now, but we're not, so that's good.
I believe people are putting way too much stuff against our president, and they're blaming him for a lot of things when we haven't even really seen what he's gonna do.
I just don't like the fact that our president is it doesn't really seem like he's doing much. I mean, it just seems like he's taking a vacation every 2 months or so.
With the president dropping out of so many alliances that we've had for so many years, I feel like that's a big issue.
The students come from 6 districts around Northeast Ohio: Lorain, Strongsville, Willoughby-Eastlake, Akron, West Geauga, and Painesville. From now until November of 2020, we will take this cross-section of students and see how they feel about our country and the world. The recent protests by NFL players was by far the most talked about topic during our interviews with the students.
Yeah, they have the right to do that. I don't know why everyone's tripping about it. It's a freedom of speech.
No matter how much you think things are going wrong in our country, I believe you should stand for our anthem. I mean, it's just a sign of respect.
Some of the students told us they do watch local and national news, often with their parents, but a majority use Twitter, Instagram, and social media to find out what's happening. Over these next 3 years, we will continue to talk about things in the news, but we will also let the students talk about their own personal causes.
Race issues really concern me. In a way, there's still discrimination. People will always look at certain people and have stereotypes, and I don't understand why.
The icebergs melting and like sea levels rising and like very obvious changes are happening and people keep denying it and no one's really changing anything.
They are the voting class of 2020 and will soon be voting with you to help re-elect a president or help choose a new one. We at Fox 8 are giving them a chance to speak their minds and let their voices be heard.
2018 saw several mass school shootings here in the U.S. Several schools locally had demonstrations where students asked for safety in their buildings, and this was a big topic for the voting class of 2020. With gun control and student safety on the mind of the nation, we asked the students how they felt.
Columbine, Parkland, Chardon.
To be honest, we're supposed to say we're good and great, but deep down, I low-key don't feel safe, but like, we're just tired of the hate.
The police and fire department are on scene, working an active shooting incident.
Oh my God.
3 mass shootings, one very close to home.
I think stuff like the Chardon shooting showed people like it could happen in your town, so like more kids got more serious about it and everything.
The murders of high school students have led to walkouts, meetings, and protests.
One shooting should have been enough.
We gathered our panel of 12 sophomores from school districts across Northeast Ohio to see if all the training and security have made their schools safer.
It's the suburbs. Like, I don't really feel like anything bad is gonna happen. Maybe I'm just naive, but I'm not scared.
The fact that this has to run through our minds like every day, that it's a possibility, is really sad and should be changed.
I do feel safe. I think that they put in a lot of work to make sure that everything is like secure.
Enough is enough. Things need to change.
Several area schools held walkouts in March to support the students of Parkland, Florida.
The turnout was not as good as I'd expected, but it was still powerful to see.
I mean, we got to do something. I don't know, we just can't sit back and just let another shooting happen like we have for the past like 20 years.
We asked the students about school resource officers patrolling their halls. At Willoughby South High School, Officer Popick has given the students some peace of mind.
When the thought of Parkland came up, it was the resource officer that like didn't come in, and like I don't think for a second that Officer Popick would do that. Like I think he would definitely come in and like he would do anything for us. Like he's awesome.
As a baseball player, Tyler Weber and his team can be in and out of the building at Riverside High School in Paynesville. He likes knowing they have sheriff's deputies securing the entrance.
I feel safe. I mean, we have a deputy here, which is, I know not every school has, which is pretty big. We actually have like 3 deputies here, which is pretty good.
Every school we went to had some form of security, whether it be having to buzz in like at Akron Firestone, or armed security officers in other districts. Some students think there are other ways to help, like at Strongsville High School, where they decided kindness was the answer.
Our principal, he actually like introduced like instead of like walking out, like doing like acts of kindness instead, and like for the victims, you know, to just create like unity in the school.
While the students were afraid of potential danger, it was very interesting to see that they weren't as focused on regulations or policies as they were on the mental state of their fellow classmates. And they thought focusing on that problem might be a better way to stop potential violence. There's likely very few people who don't know who Governor Mike DeWine is after months of news conferences and discussions about COVID. But in the fall of 2018, when the governor was running for office, he was not as well known to the voting class of 2020. At that time, we asked the students if they could identify the candidates running for office. Here's how they did.
Renacci, Brown, DeWine, Cordray. 4 of the big names in Ohio this midterm election, but are they getting their message across to young people? We gathered the voting class of 2020, 12 students from high schools across Northeast Ohio who will get their first chance to vote in the 2020 presidential election. We've been following them for over a year and decided to check up on their political knowledge. We first asked them about the midterm elections and why turnout is usually very low.
In school, they teach you that the presidency is the main thing that you're supposed to focus on.
When it was Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton, like they knew who they were talking about, but like Sherrod Brown, who's that?
To be honest, no, that's not what's trending right now, to be honest.
It's not as important as like the presidential election, so they don't really care. They're like, oh, we'll do it during the presidential election, we don't care now.
I think a lot of it comes down to lack of knowledge on the topic.
So we decided to check their knowledge of the candidates. It went, for the most part, as you'd expect for 16-year-olds.
Richard Cordray. Those are just names to me.
Nope.
Mike DeWine.
No.
Heard the name, don't know who he's going for.
However, about a third of the students did know the candidates, specifically Senate candidates. Sherrod Brown.
He's our current senator, right?
Jim Renacci.
Running against Sherrod Brown.
Sherrod Brown.
He's Senate.
Sherrod Brown.
Yeah, I've heard of him.
Then, we showed the voting class photos of the candidates we just asked them about, and not one could put the name with the face.
How about that guy?
Nope.
I've seen that picture, like around Akron.
I mean, there's a few names that stick out, but it's more so like the pictures that are completely like, I have no idea.
At this age, should we expect young teens to know the candidates and issues?
Probably like when I actually turn 18, I'll like start paying attention to like the news and everything. But right now I'm focused on school, really. I'm not really watching the news or anything.
I want to know everything about the people that I'm voting for instead of going into the booths and just checking anybody because it sounds all right.
By the time I'm 18, I'll actually do research or like know what I'm talking about.
Definitely want to be an informed voter, so definitely think I should step up my game.
It's just important to be informed.
But where can they learn about what's happening? Most of the students felt that school districts should play a larger role in preparing young people to vote in their first election.
Anything that I know about the elections come from school, because that's where I spend most of my time.
But that's more so just for seniors, and the seniors don't even take a history class. So it's kind of like, what are you supposed to do?
They could like talk about the issues, but I don't think people would really take it like serious. They would just laugh and like we would argue and they would get off track. And
I actually want to learn and like talk about it instead of just like what we're doing now. That will work. I remember this.
No, really, I'm excited. I get excited about these interviews because none of my friends like to listen to me ramble about stuff like that.
These are young minds, excited to learn. They believe we need to not only teach them the basics, but prepare them for things that will affect them the rest of their lives.
Yeah, that'll be fun. Students will be into that.
I would probably say go into the schools and actually talk to some students.
It's really, really important to just know what's going on.
When I'm going to vote for president in 2020, I want the right person who's going to lead the country and do the right things for everyone.
Coming up, we gathered the voting class of 2020 here in the Fox 8 studios to see how they would handle a political discussion with people they've never met before. Then, how many teenagers would actually sit down to watch a political debate? We found out. See how long they stayed interested and awake when we come back. At the halfway point of our time with the voting class of 2020, we felt it was time to get them out of the classroom and into a real-world environment. We brought the students here to the Fox 8 studios for a frank discussion about politics and the issues they would need to know about going into the 2020 election.
I do basketball and soccer.
We gave the voting class of 2020 a taste of what real-life political discussions are like by putting them all in a group to have an honest town hall forum about their views on politics.
Who wants to talk first? Because I didn't want to talk first because I was like kind of nervous about it.
Some were nervous.
I kind of wish I would have talked more because I think I only talked like 2 or 3 times.
Others didn't mind taking the mic at all.
More women running.
In February of 2019, the voting class was halfway through their junior year.
Who's going to lead the country?
They were still forming opinions on real-world issues, and at the time, there was a lot of talk about the border wall with Mexico.
Like America's supposed to be like the land of the free, and like we're building a wall to keep people out. America's supposed to be a melting pot.
I disagree with that, you know, having a wall would like take away the idea that we're like this peaceful melting pot place, because you can't just like have that. Like you have to, like going along with Joe said, like stability. Like there has to be like a price you're going to pay for the freedom, and it's monitoring like who's coming in and out.
When you know someone's political views going into a conversation, you kind of like change how you word things or like what you actually like open up to believing in.
Luke?
So it was super cool going into that because I wasn't like concerned about what any of them like thought about like me or my views.
When you hear people's political views, you think of them as like the political views. So meeting them in person and being able to talk to them really kind of put like a background to the view.
For some students, the town hall was a moment of discovery that not everybody in your age group thinks the same way.
I really did not know that there was like kids out here that was really like messing with Trump like that. Like I was like really shocked, like this is really how kids think. Yeah, like I'm thinking we're all about to be on the same page, but we were not.
That was really fun hearing, sides from other people's point of views. And it's just crazy to think how like media can take over some of these kids' perspectives nowadays.
We did not all share the same views, and like that was totally fine. It's like we kind of just respected each other's opinions.
The discussion was honest but civil, and the students seemed to enjoy getting their feet wet when it comes to political talk.
Thank you.
It was a big step for the voting class of 2020.
I was told by several of them how their government classes in high school didn't always focus on current politics. Many felt these types of discussions would be beneficial to students. In November of 2019, there were over a dozen Democratic candidates vying for the nomination that Joe Biden eventually won. We discovered that not one of these students had ever watched a political debate. We brought them together for one of the first Democratic debates to see what they thought about the process.
Initially, the excitement was there. Most of these students have never watched a debate. However, by the end of the first hour, the students were not as enthusiastic about the process. All right, you're an hour in. How you holding up? All right. Yeah?
It's so much like information from so many different people because there's like so many people.
Is it overwhelming?
Well, yeah. And it's
Over the course of the next 2 hours, as the debate bounced from gun violence to the opioid crisis to women's reproductive rights, the students perked up. They were a bit confused by the process, though. They thought it was going to be more about each candidate's policy instead of the candidates talking about each other.
The attacking of the different candidates kind of seems out of place. It should be more professional.
I don't think Elizabeth Warren's doing too hot. They're all kind of ganging up on her. And the lady from Minnesota.
Klobuchar.
Yeah, Klobuchar. She's doing pretty good. Just really getting some good points in there.
It's going okay, This personally isn't really my side, but it's nice to see another viewpoint.
Because it's like something I've thought about my whole life, and like now it's like here, and I'm like, okay, like I'm actually gonna vote, and it's like gonna matter.
The voting class of 2020 have made their decision. Coming up, after early voting, we'll see what they liked about the process. Did they vote absentee or in person? And what were factors in their decision? The answers in just a moment. Our goal from the beginning of this project was to encourage the voting class of 2020 to be a voter in the upcoming presidential election. To document their experience, they all agreed to participate in early voting, some from college, some from home. Here's what we found.
It's all come down to this.
As I was filling it out, I was like, I'm really doing it. Like I'm voting. It's super exciting.
It's making me kind of nervous, especially because there's a lot of like controversy about absentee ballots.
I don't exactly know every single step, but hopefully it will just be an easy process and I get things done.
For 3 years, we followed the voting class of 2020, and now it's time for them to cast their ballot. To learn about their experience, we asked them to vote early, either in person if they were able, or by absentee ballot if they were away at college. We anticipated a pretty similar process for everyone, but that was not the case.
I wasn't too excited to fill out in general, actually. I was kind of disappointed.
Brian filled his ballot out in his dorm room at Ohio State. He looked to the recent debates to confirm his decision, but it actually turned him off.
With the debates, everybody looked so unprofessional, so it was kind of hard to cast a vote.
But at least Brian got his absentee ballot. Towards the end of October, 4 of the students still hadn't received their ballots.
I was getting super nervous. I was like looking for it every day, and I was like really excited about it.
I'm like nervous. Like I'm gonna like mess it up, and then like my vote's not gonna count.
Most of my roommates already have gotten theirs and like filled it out and sent it. It was just like different to see how like theirs is already done and theirs is out of the way, but I still have to wait for mine.
Avery Campbell did not see her ballot yet either, so her mom encouraged her to cast a provisional ballot at the Lake County Board of Elections.
Since I was already home, she said you should just go in person and do it. Just for the experience as well, just because like it's my first time voting, so like she wanted me to be able to see what it's actually like compared to just a piece of paper.
So Avery is official, and so are several others who decided to vote in person.
I'm actually excited that it's this many people coming out and actually voting.
First time voter!
Joe Jennings only had a short wait at the Lake County Board of Elections, and he felt the process was pretty easy.
It was terrific, honestly. It was a really fun time. I feel like a new man, like a grown, normal person of, society.
That seemed to be the common theme among the voting class of 2020. Even for those that filled out their absentee ballots, it was a sense of accomplishment.
I am confident in my choices, and I'm really excited that I got to vote.
I was sitting there like struggling, like I was like shaking and my hands were sweating, like filling in the ballot. It just shows how important that really is important to me.
There was one member of the voting class of 2020 who did not vote yet. Tyler Smith was willing to vote early for the good of the group, but he asked us if we could wait. Like many of us who went with our parents to the voting booth as kids, Tyler did too. He and his family decided, since this was his first time voting, that they would all go as a family and all vote together on Election Day.
Instead of through the mail-in ballot, so I thought this was like something cool and exciting for a family.
Nearly a dozen students and completely different experiences.
I voted.
But a sense of pride and validation that their vote will be counted this November.
Was this experiment a success? Did talking about politics at an earlier age encourage students to learn more? Are they educated voters? Find out next.
This is the story of 12 students
who lived in Northeast Ohio.
picked to comment
about important issues
in our future
to have their comments recorded
And find out what happens
When young people
stop worrying about homework
and start getting real.
We are the voting class of 2020.
I have a lot of respect for and was very impressed by these young men and women. They volunteered for a project not knowing exactly what was involved or how much extra work that they'd be required to do over a 3-year period. So, did they all see this political discussion as beneficial? We asked them what it was like to be a part of the voting class of 2020.
I think it's been a great honor. I really had the privilege to, have my opinion voiced on TV. That's really cool. Not a lot of people get that.
I felt kind of famous. I was like, oh my gosh.
Oh, I saw you on TV. I'd be like, oh yeah. I'll be on TV sometime.
We've had a fun but educational time with the voting class of 2020. Back in 2017, when we first met, the students were definitely excited to be on TV, but also a bit nervous about trying to say what they thought we wanted to hear.
I was super nervous that I wasn't going to know anything that you guys were asking.
As we continued to meet with the voting class, the students not only gained knowledge about the political process, but they gained some confidence in themselves and helped develop their own ideas about politics and life.
3 years to now, it affects my life so much more, especially like being at college. It's like I kind of am like my own person now.
Before this, I wasn't really into politics, so this kind of helped me, bridge the path to getting into politics and, being an adult and like actually talking about these issues.
I definitely learned a lot about myself and a lot about others. So I think that was the best part about it, having the before and after. 3 years ago, I definitely had a lot of different views than I do now.
Now I know what this whole process is like, and like I know which issues to focus on, and I know what matters to me.
I think it's been like one of the cooler things I've ever done in my life, just because it's something different that not many people ever get to do.
I've just followed politics a lot more, and I'm more belief driven about it.
I don't think I would be I don't know. Maybe I still would have been, but I don't think I would be so socially aware, so politically aware had I not done this.
It was big in my family and my household, like a big push to vote. But I guess this kind of made me stop and think what it really meant for me, and how do I really feel aside from what my family thinks. So I think it was a really great experience for me to like grow.
In school is kind of, you want to stay away from that, so they don't really allow you to talk too much about it. So it was a reliever to actually have a conversation and get some feedback. So I did like this process a lot.
Stuff like this should be available to more kids. Like they should either have like a class on it in schools or like something you can take. Because I know that there are a lot of kids that don't talk about it and like they'll either just not vote or like they just will vote uneducated.
It's definitely opened my mind to different stuff, 100%. Changed my perspective. It really has been such a great time doing all of this, and it's so crazy to think that it's over now.
While it is over for their time on TV, we hope that what they've learned over 3 years will carry with them throughout their lives. Although they're full-fledged adults now, they will always be to us the voting class of 2020.
That is the voting class of 2020. We hope this project gives you a glimpse at what issues and events will be at the forefront of voters in the years and decades to come. For all of us here at Fox 8, I'm Todd Meany. We thank you for joining us this past half hour. Don't forget, no matter who you're supporting, be sure you vote now and in the future. Good night.